happy for this.
Big round of applause for Mr. Tom Baker, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is very agreeable. It's always very pleasant to be received by a full house. In a moment or two, I just invite you to ask me questions, which would be the quickest way to get to know me. I don't really mind what sort of questions you ask me, as long as you're not surprised by my answers. But it's an amazing thing to become so far, right across the world, isn't it? And be known and be received by fans. The fans who actually, I'm very aware after all these years, you weren't born when I started out, but who have actually not only created me as a kind of professional entertainer, since Doctor Who was my only great worldwide success, but not only created me and turned me into a success, but have, you really should take the credit for this, I insist that you take the credit for this, you have actually sustained my success. As the years have ravaged me, and as producers have died or turned away from me or anything, fans remain loyal. Of all, I'm very interested in love. When I was young, I wanted to be, of course, loved, but as I grew older, I want to be loved a lot more. And at my age now, I need to be adored. It's fans that provide that, because of all love, which is the only important thing in our lives, of all love, fan love seems to me, the affection of fans, the loyalty of fans, seems to me to be the most enduring. It's an amazing thing. I suppose it's something to do with, we look at old fictional heroes like me, very old fictional heroes, and we are reminded of the safety of our youth or of our childhood or whatever it is, and the fun that it gave us. And by association, the affection is reinforced and grows, or at least if it doesn't grow, does not die. And for that, I'm very grateful indeed. So to come right across the world and be received like this, it's very nice. So there we are. So I suppose the very best thing to do, I think quite quickly that I'm here just to do some kind of jolly commercials about securing people's future. I didn't quite know the meaning of that, but since I'm entirely all past. But that's why I came down here. I'm here only for a few days and have to return to work on Wednesday. So I think someone should ask me some questions, and then something might emerge. Who knows? Go on. Yeah, go on. Oh, well, it's taken me a long time to come to New Zealand because there really isn't anything, obviously, you know, in terms of work for kind of aging actors to do. There really isn't, and so that's kept me away. I have been invited sometimes, but it just didn't work out, that's all. And it is such a long way. Yep. I'm fronting a science fantasy, science fact, a series of programs, 12 1 hours, I think, for the BBC radio. And then I'm on standby to go to India for a 4-hour television thing called The Rising, because this is the anniversary year of the Black Hole of Calcutta. And so, naturally, we've got this windy old imperialistic nonsense. And I'm supposed to play some irascible old boy, which, of course, I can do without batting an eyelid. I just roll my eyes and, you know, and growl a bit. And actually, the part isn't completely written up. I've already suspended it because I said, look, it isn't enough. It isn't large enough, nor irascible enough to go all the way to India, you know, for 4 weeks or whatever it is. But they promised, the Indian director promised that they would rev it up a bit. So that's why I've got to go back. Otherwise, it would be nice to stay here. I honestly, of course, I'm sure, living in a beautiful place like this, I've only looked at pictures of the rest of New Zealand, but coming from the outside world, I mean, even allowing for my sense of hyperbole, as I really thought, I said the other day, I thought I died and gone to heaven, you know. I mean, because when I was young, I was very keen on getting to heaven. Now I'm very keen on getting to New Zealand, and I'm very sorry to be leaving it indeed, because it seems to me, I walked, as you can see from my poor face, 5 or 6 miles just now, and my friend Louise was waiting for me to bring me here, but it seems to me to be perfect, you know, all this space, and people look generally so well, and you don't have those tortured grimaces everywhere. Yeah, I'm sure you've got them, but you keep them well hidden. And you know, it just seems to me to be so gentle, and you all seem to be generally very friendly and everything, which of course springs out of all this space and all this temperate climate and all this fruit. Somebody sent me some plums yesterday, the like of which I have never had, and if it hadn't been for you, having to see you today, I'm very impressionable, wanted to die after I'd eaten the plums. I mean, they were perfect. Absolutely, I must find out tomorrow from what variety they were. So altogether, it seems to me to be heaven. Of course, the amazing thing about heaven, as those of you who have a literary turn of mind, who remember John Milton's Paradise Lost and then Paradise Regained. But Paradise Lost, of course, springs entirely from that tragic flaw in nearly all natures, even angelic natures, where in Paradise, Lucifer, as you know, we called a match after him years later, Lucifer actually got fed up with paradise, didn't he? And he rose up against God. And look what came of him. Don't do that. So maybe you take it for granted. And maybe after a few months here, I would take it for granted. And it makes me shudder to think that I would, because it seems to me to be perfect, to be paradise. Yeah. No one else? Is that all the questions? Yes. Well, I don't think I can possibly retire, you know, because the thing is about being a proper actor. By that I mean an actor, a real actor. I'm not now talking about how good an actor one is, but a real actor is only real when he's fictional. This is one of the delightful paradoxes of being an entertainer. I only feel real when I'm someone else. When I'm reduced to Tom Baker or just my wife having dinner, I find life harder. In fact, to sit down night after night with the most important, isn't it amazing about the most important people in your life? We're talking about taking for granted. I sit down opposite my wife. I cannot live without my wife. You know, when she goes out of the house, I get nervous and phone her on the mobile. And yet, I can't live with that. She makes nearly all of the positive decisions. She's the only clever thing I ever did. And yet, when I'm with her, I frequently can't stand the sight of her. This is a kind of one of the paradoxes of it, isn't it? And if she eats, because she's a very healthy girl, and if she eats lots of salad, which makes an awful lot of noise, it makes me very edgy. The sound of people eating celery makes me very agitated indeed. And this can, of course, these kind of neuroses can grow. So that, actually, I live in an old school, so it's a big house. So my wife and I often are apart when we're in the same house, which is very handy for our conjugal life, you know, because every now and then we meet and we're surprised. She's on the other side of the house, now on this side. But anyway, when she eats celery, I leave the room usually, and she understands that. She's very flexible. But anyway, quite recently, I was sitting in the kitchen, and I could hear this terrible crunching, like the sound of shale being shoveled into a tin wheelbarrow. And so I screeched. She was right up in the other classroom. I screeched up there, "You're eating celery." I cried. And a little voice came back. She said, "No, I'm not." I said, "You are." And I rushed in, not wanting to be proved wrong, forced her mouth open because she will do anything for me. And I saw that she wasn't eating celery. And as I peered into her open mouth and her eyes looking quite surprised, I looked in there like that and listened. See how she was good to me. She could have bitten my ear then. And I listened, and I couldn't smell any celery, so very noticeable. And still I could hear. And I looked through the Gothic window across the churchyard, and I thought, it can't be anyone in there eating celery. I mean, it's a very old churchyard. Most of them are dead by the turn of a century. And still I could hear the crunching. And then I saw this farmhouse in a distance. Jamie Clark, his name is. So I phoned the thing in a frenzy. His wife, Sue, answered the phone. I said, "Sue, it's Tom Baker here." "Yes, Tom. Do you want to come over for a drink?" "No," I said. "Is someone eating celery over there?" And she said, "Good God, yeah, Jamie's having celery now." "How do you know that? You're 300 yards away."
So one has to be very careful about these, you know, these kind of neuroses which grow and grow and grow. But on the other hand, kind of creative people, writers and actors and mouth organ players, you know, thrive. They actually create out of anxiety, really. Because I suppose it's anxiety that allows you to refract your vision of how you say things, how you see things. So if you want to be something like an actor or a writer, and you've been brought up absolutely happily and healthily, you know, and not being battered by your parents and no poverty, and it's actually quite difficult to become a novelist here because you haven't got much to be going on with, have you? Because happiness actually isn't all that commercial as a subject for a novel. Any other questions? Yep.
An actor says that they are continually learning their craft as they go. Do you sometimes in the middle of the working day think, I've just done something new or I've just learned something new? Does it ever come to you like that?
No. Sometimes people come up to me and say, you just did something new, Tom. And sometimes they say, and you shouldn't have done. That wasn't the line. That happened several times during trying to do these commercials. No, I didn't. But you were always seeking, you know, but the point is actually when you're trying to language is largely made up, as you know, and acting is expressed often in language, not always, but often, is expressed in cliches. You know, that we talk in popular music titles, we know about sequences of notes which are recognizable, and people exchange cliches. So most communication is in the area of cliches like, how are you? You know, very well, okay, what a nice day, raining yesterday. And I like it also when three people are looking at some penguins, and they all say to each other, look, penguins. We can all see that. We're reassured by that. When it comes to drama, of course, language then changes. And the great dramas of classical dramas of Shakespeare or Johnson or people like that, then you're into another area of music as you would move from popular, easy music, easy listening music into great classical music. So how you do things, how you then express emotions or tell a story, the real fun is how do you do it surprisingly, you know, because otherwise, when you watch television, for example, we think that we know the way we behave and the way people behave on television. You know, if somebody answers the phone on television, for example, if the phone is engaged, have you noticed they pick up the phone like that, they get dialed and pick up the phone like that, and they engage something, it goes boop, 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 and they always look at the phone and put it down, don't they? If the actor actually just, it goes boop, 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 and the actor puts the phone down, you say, just a minute, he didn't look at it. And if someone walks through a door in television, they don't actually walk out of a door. They always stop at the door and say, and another thing. They always do that, don't they? It's absolutely amazing. And the men in television, they're always sarcastic to women. It's extremely rare that you hear a character on television say something nice to a girl. Or if they do say something nice, it's kind of grudging, you know. So there's a kind of school of sarcasm, as if that's the way everyone behaves, but it's not. It's the way they go on television. And so you might see a middle-aged lady watching her husband looking at a very beautiful girl, say on rollerblades or something, and the husband might say to his wife, why didn't you come like that? And she says, what, with a figure like mine? And he says, no, with a figure like hers. Yeah, and yes, and we laugh like that, but it's kind of cruel, isn't it? It's always that kind of sarcasm. I find that rather dull myself. I prefer something more mischievous or old-fashioned, but then I am old-fashioned. Answer me, yeah, go on. Are you just scratching, or are you going to ask me a question? Yeah, I saw you do that. Yes, anyone else? Go on.
Was it difficult, the transition into the role of Doctor Who, when you know, following on from someone who's well loved and, you know, already has a strong characterization, already established?
Well, the lady asked when I took it over was, you know, how did it go? I mean, I didn't really know what I was doing. At the time, I was very out of work, although I'd had a flirtation with movies which had failed. In fact, I've been very successful at courting failure, and I'm not complaining about that because it has been quite interesting. But when I took over the part, I didn't know what I was letting myself in for. I had no idea. Everything was an accident. The scarf and all that sort of thing. It just grew because we had a fortnight to run around costume places and try getting dressed up, and it was great fun, and we had lots of drinks, and I was excited about that, but I didn't know what I was doing, and maybe that was why I was successful. I didn't know what I was doing. I was playing this alien, and often working on 4 or 6 scripts at the same time. I used to say to the script girl, what do I do in this scene? And there was quite a lot, if you recall, those of you who really know about it, you know, when sometimes I would look at things like that, and that was because the lines were written on my hands. You know, I used to say, oh. And because I could never remember, I always used, no one ever picked it up, that whenever I was using the coordinates or the correlatives, I've forgotten now which, and it doesn't matter, I always quoted a BBC telephone number, 7438,000, EX4111, which was the BBC and our extension at Doctor Who. No one ever noticed. It was incredible. And all over the TARDIS were bits of tape, you know, with this nonsensical gibberish that we had to speak, you know. And I quickly cottoned on that it was fun. It didn't matter about the nonsense. The real thing was the conviction of the character, you know, to be surprised and to be, within the predictability, to be surprised and to enjoy the adventures. You know, that was the real thing, isn't it? Which is what we all want to do, to enjoy adventures. Yes?
You mentioned surprise. Now, one thing I thought about your characterization of the Doctor was he seemed to live in almost a perpetual state of surprise of the universe. How much of that was you and how much of that was the scriptwriter?
Wouldn't it be wonderful if I could say it was entirely me? It might have, some of it was me, because really I have learned nothing in spite of having lived a fairly long life now. I haven't learned very much. I quite like, in Kurt Vonnegut, who wrote Mother Earth and Breakfast of Champions and several other marvelous books, he has a character called Kilgore Trout who lives in Transfamagor, which must be just next to Casterbarus, really, in the constellation of Gallifrey. But Kilgore Trout has this kind of Peter Pan quality that and I was very aware of him. I liked him a lot. And in a way, he was both endearing and horrifying. But he was endearing if you told him a joke, in the sense that every time Kilgore Trout blinked or looked away, it wiped everything, you see. So if, suppose, what's your name? John. So I say, hello, John. And then I cough like that. And I say, John. And then I look over there, and it's John, and it always starts again. And Kilgore Trout was constantly being surprised. And I like the idea of someone who's intelligent, never becoming corrupt or knowing how to react, just to be spontaneous. You know? So if I saw a big monster, I always insisted that we cut the frightened lines until the monster hit me. That was always the fun, wasn't it? So I'd say, hello, and then he'd go bang. And when I recovered, I'd say, we've got to look out for him. But it was important that we didn't start by saying we've got to look out for him just because he's ugly or whatever, or just because he's grotesque. I thought that was, and the children were onto that very quickly. Yeah. No one at the back seems to be at all curious. Yes. Have I seen it? No, I haven't seen it. No, I have to also confess, you know, that when I was doing Doctor Who, I didn't actually see it either very much. Mostly because, of course, I had often to re-voice bits or dub it or whatever it is, or sometimes at the editing I had to look at crucial bits if we wanted to tighten something up. But I didn't really much see it as it went out, on the basis that, I think a lot of actors would say this, so I'll be brief, is that you would look at it, you see, and think, if we'd had another 2 takes, we could have got that better, you know. And so what was the point of me looking at it if all the time I'd be thinking we could have done it better? It was much better to let it go. And if the audience liked it, which fortunately they did, then they would tell me they liked it, and that would satisfy me. But otherwise, if I did see sequences, I'd then be feeling antagonistic towards the director, thinking, you know, we could have made that better. So I didn't see, if I didn't watch myself, I'm not likely to see some fella doing something that's set in America. I asked my wife to do it. She does lots of things for me. And she said that it was okay, but she said it wasn't mysterious, you know. It wasn't, she said it was just a kind of an adventure story set in urban Los Angeles. So I'm very glad I didn't watch it. I was telling fortunes down the village or something like that, you know. Because, I mean, I have a great time in the village, you know, because I'm the kind of celebrity in the village. And they're very poor in the village, and I'm comparatively rich. And so what happens is I go down there and I buy all the drinks, which is the only way they listen to me, really. And so I'm extremely popular in the local pub, and I buy the drinks, and they gather round, and I can sing out of tune, and they still say, that was great, Tom, and wink at each other. It's like I'm a kind of old Tony Lumpkin, and She Stoops to Conquer. Yes, yes.